Once upon a time, in a small town, there was a boy named Brian. Brian was a quiet boy who loved to read and draw, but he was often ignored by his classmates because he was very shy and didn't talk much. The other kids didn't mean to be mean to him, but they just didn't notice him. Brian felt invisible, like nobody cared about him. One day, a new boy named Carlos moved to town. Carlos was outgoing and friendly, and he quickly made friends with everyone in class except for Brian. Brian tried to talk to Carlos, but he was too shy to start a conversation. As time went on, Carlos became the most popular boy in class, and everyone wanted to be his friend. He was invited to all the parties and events, but Brian was never invited. Brian felt even more invisible than before, and he began to withdraw even further into his shell. One day, the class was given a group project, and Brian was paired up with Carlos. Brian was nervous, but he tried to make the best of it. However, when they started working on the project, Carlos didn't seem to notice Brian at all. He only talked to the other kids in the group and ignored Brian's ideas. As the project progressed, Brian started to feel more and more invisible. He felt like he wasn't even there, like he was just a shadow that nobody saw. He tried to speak up, but his voice was barely above a whisper and nobody seemed to hear him. One night, Brian had a dream. In the dream, he was walking in the woods and he saw a fairy. The fairy was tiny and delicate, with wings that shimmered in the moonlight. The fairy noticed Brian and flew over to him. "Hello, little one," the fairy said. "What brings you to the woods tonight?" "I don't know," Brian replied. "I feel invisible, like nobody sees me." The fairy smiled kindly. "I see you," she said, "and you are special. You have a gift that nobody else has." "A gift?" Brian asked, surprised. "Yes," the fairy said. "You have the gift of imagination. You can create anything you want with your mind, and nobody can take that away from you. You are not invisible. You are just waiting to be seen." Brian woke up from his dream feeling frightened but also hopeful. He realized that he had been focusing too much on what other people thought of him and not enough on his own gifts and talents. He decided to put his imagination to use and create something amazing for the group project. The next day at school, Brian presented his idea to the group. He had created a model of a futuristic city, complete with flying cars and towering skyscrapers. The other kids were amazed by Brian's creativity and talent, and they started to see him in a new light. From that day on, Brian was no longer invisible. He was appreciated for his unique gifts and talents, and he made many new friends. Carlos even apologized for ignoring him and became one of Brian's closest friends. Brian realized that he had been invisible because he was too focused on what other people thought of him. But when he embraced his own talents and uniqueness, he became visible to everyone around him. He learned that being different was not a weakness, but a strength, and that he should always be proud of who he was. And so, the invisible boy became visible, not because of magic, but because he learned to see himself in a new light.